Hello there, Core955 back again, bringing you our next review. Today, we shall be covering Fear, also known as First Encounter Assault Recon. But before we get started, I'd like to throw a quick shout out towards Haloowl. He's the one who did the artwork for this video. Go give him some love, check out his work. He's got a lot of good shit. But now, without further ado, let's get started on this review. Alright, so Fear was announced in 2004 at E3 with a gameplay trailer, and it was developed by Monolith Studios. The trailer places a huge emphasis on its blending of a Japanese-style horror, such as The Ring, The Grudge, and American-style action. Overall, the core concept of the game is it's an action shooter with a horror atmosphere and psychological tendencies. The game loves to fuck with your head. Within Fear, you play as the Point Man, a recent transfer to the Fear Squad, First Encounter Assault Recon. So, after only a few days, you're sent in to stop Alex Fettel and his army of clone replica super soldiers, while fending off psychological and telekinetic horrors, and uncovering the story of what ArmorCam has been doing with Alma Wade. The gameplay in Fear is entirely in your controls. Do you want to play fast and loose to rock and roll, blast through everything? Or do you want to go slow and methodical, creep through the darkness, take your time and pick them off? It's entirely up to you and however the hell you want to play this game. To complement what I said earlier about this being a blend of American-style action movies, there is a reflex system which allows you to slow down the world so you can outmaneuver, outflank, and outgun your enemies and kick their shit in. It makes for a really interesting way to play the game, especially when you run out of reflex for a moment and you're like, oh shit, I've got to recharge. This is not a good time for this. Another key thing of gameplay is the fact that there is loot and goodies hidden everywhere. Simon Belmont, you got wall turkeys? Well, I got fucking glowing needles in my walls. Basically, what you need to do is you gotta explore the environment thoroughly. Search everywhere, especially for those valuable health and reflex boosters, which respectively boosts your health count, and the other one makes your reflexes last longer. So overall, the gameplay really does add to that action movie feeling that they're going for. And I find it's a really good complement for the rest of the systems within the game. Now let's move the hell on. So honestly, the controls within Fear can be a bit awkward to use at first. They're not like your typical shooter. In a typical shooter, say like Call of Duty, Battlefield, you'll use your R1 to fire, your L1 to aim, your L2, R2 to chuck grenades, your triangle will swap your weapons, your stick will be your melee. But this is completely different in Fear. Instead, you'll use R2 to shoot, you'll click the right stick to aim down the sights, use R1 to swap your weapons, you'll use L1 to chuck a grenade, and you'll use circle to bash your enemies. This is quite a bit different from your standard controls, as you can see. And this will basically take a little bit of time to get used to. But otherwise, the controls do play smooth and responsively. They respond like how you'd expect. Honestly, all you really need to do is take some time in the starting area and just get used to them. Learn the controls because it's completely safe, nothing's going to kill you, so just play around, shoot your guns, swap around, see what you can do to get used to everything. Other than that, let's move the hell on. So within Fear, you'll face 3 factions of foes. You'll face your replica super soldiers, you'll face the ArmorCam security forces, and you'll face the paranormal assholes. And each of these factions play out differently in game. So let's start with the replica soldiers, shall we? These are your typical soldiers, but they are all elite soldiers. They are well coordinated and they know how to outflank and outmaneuver you if you give them the chance. They're also smart enough to take cover and make cover, meaning they will throw a shelf or a table down to block your gunfire. The AI utilized by the soldiers is smart enough to make callouts and decisions. They will use these callouts to track your movements and try to counter you. either with throwing a grenade or flanking you. Their AI also has a more human side to it. I remember very vividly assaulting an elevator, blasting a man in half with a shotgun, and the soldier beside him is cowering in fear. It's pretty fucking hilarious. So next up on the list is the Armor Cam Rent-A-Cobs, I mean security forces. They are what their name implies. They're basically a privately funded mercenary group who works for Armor Cam. Though for a mercenary force, they do display quite a bit of loyalty considering they're being picked apart by both fucking sides. And don't assume that just because they're normal humans, that they won't give you trouble. They may be less coordinated and less well trained, but there's a hell of a lot of them. They will try to overwhelm you with numbers. And last up the bat is the supernatural forces. These mostly appear in like flashbacks, dream sequences, and other trippy moments. Or say if an enemy could display psionic powers and such. This is a much more rare form of enemy in the game. Overall, there's a large amount of variety in the enemy types that you'll face within Fear, and it's quite a bit of fun. Now let's move on to our next segment, shall we? The atmosphere and tension within the game is derived from a much more subtle source, which is fitting of the Japanese horror-inspired roots. To accompany this, you'll see little flashes, little hints. You'll see a little girl dash by the screen. You'll see Fettel just walk through pipes and such. All little things that the game's trying to do to mess with your head. This is also used to give little hints at your past. You'll be walking down a corridor and BAM! Flashback sequence. I find them to be a pretty interesting way to tell your character's backstory. And you'll never know when these shifts are coming. They're just whenever the game feels like it. This is where the developers really got that unique blend down pat. They did the job excellently. Now let's move on to soundtrack, shall we? Alright, so this is about the part of the game that I start to have issues with it. And this primarily stems from the dialogue. It isn't that the dialogue's bad or campy or anything like that. But no, the main issue stems from the fact the dialogue is very faint, very hard to hear. You may struggle to hear the supporting character's dialogue. If you have any background noise at all, you may struggle to hear the game. Now, let's move on to the good shit, shall we? Honestly, the soundtrack is really interesting and good for drawing you in. I will leave some clips for you to listen to without my dialogue. I really do think they help achieve that blend of action and horror. Because at times, the music will be subtle and eerie and tense. But when you go into fight mode, the music ramps up and gets you in the mood to fight some replica. Overall, the sound design in the game is pretty good and serves its purpose well. As I said, the main issue is just the dialogue. Now let's move on, shall we? Alright, now we're on graphics and performance. This is another segment with issues. If you're paying attention to the video footage, you will notice this extremely long load time. Now, I'm not going to show the entire thing, but this is just an idea. At times, these load times would take anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds, really putting a halt to the action. This is my main detraction from the game. Overall, when the game wants to load, the gameplay is smooth and refined. There's some really amusing models in the game, such as when you blast a man in half and he just splits, or you come across a burning skeleton. Honestly, it looks pretty convincing and pretty entertaining. Now let's move on to the second to last segment, shall we? Alright, so here we are back at the downsides. So basically, I'm just going to recap the issues. The primary issue is probably gotta be the load times. Anywhere from 10 to 30 second load times is pretty ridiculous. And the other issue is the faint dialogue. It's really hard to hear the NPCs talk, especially your support characters who talk over the radio. Their volume is really low compared to the rest of the game. Now let's move on and wrap this up, shall we? Here we are, the grand finale, the final conclusion. So how do I feel overall about Fear as a package? Honestly, the game set out to blend Japanese horror and American action. You can definitely see the Japanese horror influences, such as The Ring and The Grudge, and the American style action such as The Matrix. You got that slow-mo bullet time fun. As far as action horror games go, none are more stylish than Fear was. Because look at its contemporaries at the time. You've got Dead Space, which came out I believe after it, and Resident Evil 4. Compared to its contemporaries, it was a standout game. Resident Evil 4 was pretty much a traditional third-person shooter with a few horror elements, while Fear went that extra little step towards adding that action movie flair. Now yes, the game does have its downsides, such as the load times, which are especially bad on the PlayStation version. I hear these issues are not quite as big of a deal on the Xbox though. So, whatever console you buy it on, you may have it a little better, may have it a little worse. And the other issue is easily corrected with a headset. Put on a pair of headphones and you should be able to hear the dialogue just fine. Overall, I think the game was an excellent experience. I had fun blasting my way through it. As we wrap this up, I'd like to say a few things. First up, if you liked the video, please give it a like. It does help the channel grow. If you learned something or have an opinion on either the video or the game, please feel free to drop me a comment. Hell, if you just want to leave some feedback, that would be appreciated as well. And hey, if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this, please subscribe. I would love to have your support on later videos. And one last thing to mention is, I want to apologize for the delay on this video. I've recently moved and I've been having some issues getting everything set up, getting a nice quiet location that I could record and do this. So I had the first half of this video done for about 2 weeks. But hey, either way, hope you enjoyed it. This has been Core955, signing off. Have a good one.